pay 1 cent over $7 a quart to I might pay 10." On Hanson's next weary entrance, he besought, "Could you fix that up?" Hanson scowled and grated, "Just a minute. Pete's sake, just a minute." In growing meekness, Babbitt went on waiting till Hanson casually reappeared with a quart of gin, what is euphemistically known as a quart, in his disdainful, long, white hands. $12, he snapped. Captain Jake thought you'd be able to fix me up for 8 or 9 a bottle." "Nope, 12. This is the real stuff smuggled from Canada. This is none of your natural spirits with a drop of juniper extract." The honest merchant said virtuously, "12 bones if you want it. Of course you understand. I'm just doing this anyway as a friend of Jake's." "Sure, sure, I understand." Babbitt gratefully held out $12. He felt honored by contact with greatness as Hanson yawned, stuffed the bills uncounted into his radiant vest, and swaggered away. He had a number of titillations out of concealing the gin bottle under his coat, and out of hiding it in his desk. All afternoon he snorted and chuckled and gurgled over his ability to "give the boys a real shot in the arm tonight." He was, in fact, so exhilarated that he was within a block of his house before he remembered that there was a certain matter, mentioned by his wife, of fetching ice cream from Vecchia's. He explained, "Oh, darn it," and drove back. Vecchia was not a caterer. He was the caterer of Zenith. Most coming-out parties were held in the white and gold ballroom of the Maison Vecchia. At all nice teas the guest recognized the 5 kinds of Vecchia sandwiches, and the 7 kinds of Vecchia cakes, and all really smart dinners ended, as on a resolving chord, Vecchia Neapolitan ice cream in one of the 3 reliable molds: the melon mold, the round mold like a layer cake, and the long brick. Vecchia's shop had pale blue woodwork, tracery of plaster roses, attendants in frilled aprons, and glass shelves of kisses, with all the refinement that inheres in whites of eggs. Babbitt felt heavy, thick, amid this professional daintiness, and as he waited for the ice cream, he decided, with hot prickles at the back of his neck, that a girl customer was giggling at him. He went home in a touchy temper. The first thing he heard was his wife's agitated, "George, did you remember to go to Vecchia's and get ice cream?" "Say, look here, do I ever forget to do things?"
"Yes, often."
"Well, now, it's darn seldom I do, and it certainly makes me tired after going into a pink tea joint like Vecchia's, and having to stand around looking at a lot of half-naked young girls, all rouged up like they were 60, and eating a lot of stuff that simply ruins their stomachs."
"Oh, it's too bad about you. I have noticed how you hate to look at pretty girls."
With a jar, Babbitt realized that his wife was too busy to be impressed by that moral indignation with which males rule the world, and he went humbly upstairs to dress. He had an impression of a glorified dining-room, of cut glass, candles, polished wood, lace, silver, roses, with the awed swelling of the heart suitable to so grave a business as giving a dinner. He slew the temptation to wear his plaited dress shirt for the 4th time, took out an entirely fresh one, tightened his black bow, and rubbed his patent leather pumps with a handkerchief. He glanced with pleasure at his garnet and silver studs. He smoothed and patted his ankles, transformed by silk socks from the sturdy shanks of George Babbitt to the elegant limbs of what is called a clubman. He stood before the pier glass, viewing his trim dinner coat, his beautiful triple-braided trousers, and murmured in lyric beatitude, "By golly, I don't look bad. I certainly don't look like Catawba. If the Hicks back home could see me in this rig, they'd have a fit." He moved majestically down to mix the cocktails. As he chipped ice, as he squeezed oranges, as he collected vast stores of bottles, glasses, and spoons at the sink and in the pantry, he felt as authoritative as the bartender at Healey Hanson's saloon. True, Mrs. Babbitt said he was underfoot, and Matilda and the maid hired for the evening brushed by him, elbowed him, shrieked, "Please open the door," as they trotted through with trays. But in his high moment he ignored them. Besides the new bottle of gin, his cellar consisted of 1/2 bottle of bourbon whiskey, a quarter of a bottle of Italian vermouth, and approximately 100 drops of orange bitters. He did not possess a cocktail shaker. A shaker was proof of dissipation, the symbol of a drinker, and Babbitt disliked being known as a drinker, even more than he liked to drink. He mixed by pouring from an ancient gravy boat into a handleless pitcher. He poured with noble dignity, holding his alembics high beneath the powerful Mazda globe, his face hot, his shirt front a glaring white, the copper sink a scoured red gold. He tasted the sacred essence. "Now, by golly, if that isn't pretty near one fine old cocktail! Kind of a Bronx and yet like a Manhattan. Hey, Myra, want a little nip before the folks come?" Bustling into the dining room, moving each glass a quarter of an inch, rushing back with resolution implacable on her face, her gray and silver lace party frock protected by a denim towel, Mrs. Babbitt glared at him and rebuked him. "Certainly not." "Well," in a loose, jocose manner, "I think the old man will." The cocktail filled him with a whirling exhilaration beyond which he was aware of devastating desires. To rush places in fast motors, to kiss girls, to sing, to be witty. He sought to regain his lost dignity by announcing to Matilda, "I'm going to stick this pitcher of cocktails in the refrigerator. Be sure you don't upset any of 'em." "Yeah. Well, be sure now. Don't go putting anything on the top shelf." "Yeah. Well, be—" He was dizzy. His voice was thin and distant. With enormous impressiveness he commanded, "Well, be sure now," and minced into the safety of the living room. He wondered whether he could persuade "as slow as bunch as Myra and the Littlefields to go some place to have dinner and raise Cain and maybe dig up some more booze." He perceived that he had gifts of profligacy which had been neglected. By the time the guests had come, including the inevitable late couple for whom the others waited with painful immovability, a great gray emptiness had replaced the purple swirling in Babbitt's head, and he had to force the tumultuous greetings suitable to a host on Floral Heights. The guests were Howard Littlefield, the doctor of philosophy who furnished publicity and comforting economics to the Street Traction Company; Vergil Gunch, the coal dealer, equally powerful in the Elk and in the Boosters' Club; Eddie Swanson, the agent for the Javelin Motor Car, who lived across the street; and Orville Jones, owner of the Lily White Laundry, which justly announced itself the biggest, busiest, bulliest cleaneries shop in Zenith. But naturally the most distinguished of all was T. Charmolly Fink, who was not only the author of Polydamas, which, syndicated daily in 67 leading newspapers, gave him one of the largest audiences of any poet in the world, but also an optimistic lecturer and the creator of Ads That Add. Despite the searching philosophy and high morality of his verses, they were humorous and easily understood by any child of 12, and it added a neat air of pleasantry to them that they were set not as verse but as prose. Mr. Frink was known from coast to coast as Chum. With them were 6 wives, more or less. It was hard to tell, so early in the evening, as at first glance they all looked alike, and as they all said, "Oh, isn't this nice?" in the same tone of determined liveliness. To the eye the men were less similar. Littlefield, a hedge scholar, tall and horse-faced; Chum Frink, a trifle of a man, with soft and mouse-like hair, advertising his profession as poet by a silk cord on his eye-glasses; Vergil Gunch, broad, with coarse black hair, embrosse; Eddie Swanson, a bald and bouncing young man who showed his taste for elegance by an evening waistcoat of figured black silk with glass buttons; Orville Jones, a steady-looking, stubby, not very memorable person, with a hemp-colored toothbrush mustache. Yet they were all so well fed and clean, they all shouted "Evening, Georgie," with such robustness that they seemed to be cousins. And the strange thing is that the longer one knew the women, the less alike they seemed. while the longer one knew the men, the more alike their bold patterns appeared.